Holy Heavenly Father, Lord God, I come before you, weak and broken. I come before you, Lord, because I believe in you and I trust you and I love you, God. Father, I ask for forgiveness. Forgive me, Father, for being poor in spirit, for being weak and idle at times. Father, I need you in my life, and I can't properly live well without you. God, I know that life is not always blue skies and sunshine. It's messy and heartbreaking, and it's full of sadness and despair. And all I know is that without you, Father, I would have perished. So, with much thanks and praise, I'm indebted for you taking me out of that miry clay, for bringing me out of darkness into your marvelous light. Father, I thank you for this opportunity tonight. I give you much thanks for the help that you sent me, who helped me get through and ready for tonight. You're amazing and always on time. Father, it was a long process, long nights, late nights, tears of unbelief and little faith, but you gave me words to press on. Without you, I can do nothing. With you, I can do all things. With your strength. Father, in this group, we humbly come together in unity and on one accord, praying individually, Father, to become all that you say we can be. And I thank you, Father, for bringing us here together tonight. May we be blessed and encouraged. Father, I ask for your Holy Spirit. I ask for your words, your thoughts, your direction. Father, I pray you find favor among us. We are your children. We need to be taught your way and not ours. Lord, there are some among us, myself included, who do not retain as well as others. So, Father, I ask for a double portion of wisdom and measure for those of us in that condition. May this presentation help and be a wonderful learning lesson for us all. I give you thanks and praise. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I am a little bit nervous. I did learn a lot. It wasn't as easy as, well, I didn't think any of us thought it would be easy, but I just know that I did not do this on my own. I know that God was with me the whole time, that he, like Elaine was telling me, God knows you can't do it, but it's to glorify him. We're doing these things to glorify him. It's nothing of ourselves. And the other day on Sabbath, Brother John, I guess it was the Holy Spirit who pressed upon his heart to check in on me, because usually I'm with all the meetings, and I wasn't. And he was absolutely right. He says he realized that I had a presentation tonight, and I was still working on it, and was still only at the editing stage. And John was gracious enough to step in and make the charts for us. So I'm thankful to the Lord, and he knows that. Okay, I guess I will just start reading. John will do the charts, okay? And I think there's going to be some times where even I ask questions, because I have found out that I don't know a lot. And it's not so much not knowing a lot, but not knowing where things go. Or when I look at all the dates, I will think to myself, I will stop and think, okay, where does that date? And I will get some of the dates right, but there's some of the dates I do not know. So I may be asking questions for help, because I'm sure there's some among us who are in the same boat as I. We're not as learned as some, and I will admit that in myself. Okay, here we go. When we consider our reform lines, it has some similarities and some differences to that of the reform line of the Millerites. There is one particular difference that I want to highlight. If we were to go to the Millerite reform line, they have 1978, they have 1840, but when you come to April 19th, July 21st, August 1st, August 22nd to the 17th, Exeter, October 22nd, you have external events on the reform line, but it doesn't have the same import as ours. If we were to lay our reform line beneath this, we also have the growth of an internal message and an internal experience. We have 1989, and I want to put two others here. 1818, 1833, 1999, 1991, 1996, 9/11. We know that these two come together, but then we also have other waymarks. We have 2004, 2009, 2012. We can make understand 2011 as a waymark on a reform line. Then we have 2014, 2016, 2018, 2019. What's notably different between our reform line is theirs. Oh, hold on. What's notably different between our reform line and theirs? Here you can understand the role of France and the papacy. We can go into the Middle East and see what's happening in 1840. And I believe there's many more external events yet to be discovered about the Millerite reform line. But when we come to our reform line, it is heavily based on external events. It's the 10-year in Afghanistan. It's what's happening within the United States, Reagan and Bush. You can trace Iran and Afghanistan. You can trace the beginning. When does ISIS begin? The founder of ISIS was radicalized in 1989, and he had an increase of knowledge on Islam. In 1996, Osama bin Laden declares war on the United States. The Islamic message is formalized. 9/11, they strike. 2013, radical Islam splits just like this movement. We can do a line of Islam. You can do a line of church and state, a line of Iran. We can put many lines through there's an echo.
I hate when it does that.
Do you want me to just keep going on, or?
Yeah, it looks like it went away.
Okay. You can do a line of Islam, and you can do a line of church and state, a line of Iran, but we can put many lines through the one reform line, and it's all heavily based on external events. July 21st, where's the external event in the Millerite history? There isn't one. April 19th, there isn't one. This is our 9/11. August 1st is 2016. Our whole message is about Donald Trump being the last president of the United States. What I want us to see is the importance to being historians. But we cannot come down to this history and understand the fulfillment of prophecy without understanding at least the last 40 years. If we want to understand any one thread, we must understand its progression from the very least, at least from 1989. So if you want to know what a war looks like, what a new mode of warfare looks like, or what church and state coming together looks like, what the issues are we must be following external sources. Therefore, there must be a true stream of information. Otherwise, it's not just for the Nephilims. We can't even construct our own line. Okay, so I want to give you some sources that if you haven't been following the news, I hope you start to see the need to. And another reason is if someone comes and gives a message and you don't know the external events, you're much more likely to accept it on face value. You must be able to go back and see it doesn't fit with history. Now, some of you, I'm not sure which notes you have, But John had placed in pictures of some of the sources that she written down here for us to go. Oh, he's got it on the board. Okay, but they're not on your paper, and Elaine will fix that. Send it out later. Okay. A couple of sources that I think are best. I really like Frontline. I think they're called Frontline for a reason. It's a set of journalists that put out documentaries. There is one that is one of the best I've seen, and it's in two-part, and it's called Putin's Revenge. Now, both of them, I did watch those two, and that had a lot of good stuff. And then even I sent a lot of resources on, oops, I'm sorry, let me get rid of that. Sorry, I usually turn it down. Let me go put it in the other room. There, it's down. Okay. So anyway, there's more resources on the second papers that she had got with the whole other stuff we're going through. You won't. This won't give you the full story. They skip some major parts. They skip the whole story of Medvedev, just for starts. They forgot to even mention that he wasn't president for 4 years, but they still give a good overall picture of Vladimir Putin, really from the time before he was ever president. And you start to see exactly why he hates Clinton. So just an example. I remember going somewhere and saying Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to win because he hated Clinton. And someone attacked me, this is test talking, and someone attacked me over that because they said there's no reason to dislike Clinton. That person had not followed the last 30 years. They thought, why doesn't Putin like Clinton? Well, we should know why he doesn't like Clinton. And then in those Putin's Revenge and the other ones on Trump, it tells you the whole story about it. Let's see. The last 30 years will tell us why he hates her and her husband. There's another one, documentary I haven't watched, but I'm sure it's good. It's not something yet understood, but perhaps should consider. They've done a documentary on Trump's trade war, and the other one is Trump's showdown. This one focuses, the trade war focuses on Trump. Well, it says one focuses on Vladimir and the other one focuses on Donald Trump. One of the best series that I've ever seen. It's in 3 parts, but each part is only 15 minutes long, and it's done by the New York Times. This one has some swearing. It's a 3-part series. Each part is about 15 minutes. And I'll just give you the name of the first part. It's Meet the KGB Spies Who Invented Fake News. And what they do is show how disinformation, conspiracy theories were used as a weapon in the Cold War. The one they highlight I find interesting is the whole concept that the United States created the AIDS virus. It was a Soviet invention, one that Gorbachev even admitted to and apologized for. But exactly how they have weaponized conspiracy theories is in 3 parts, and it really gives a good background into how disinformation was used in the Civil War and how it's come back, because we remember Vladimir Putin is a KGB agent. This was his specialized field. If we think of Stalin fighting Hitler, Stalin was a paramilitary man. He organized strikes and assassinations and mobs and robbed banks. That was his training at the beginning of the time of the Soviet Union. So if Stalin used how he was trained to fight Hitler, Vladimir Putin is going to use how he was trained to fight the United States. And Vladimir Putin's training was disinformation. Another one I don't know is exact name. It's just a clip. But if you know of TED Talks, if you can find TED Talks, there's one done on a man named William Browder, or they might call him Jim Browder. Who knows of this man? Now, on the sources that I put in the back, there's a whole story on him in the Russian lawyer. Do we know of the Trump Tower meeting? Do we all know about the secret meetings in Trump Tower with the Russian lawyer? There was 2016, before Trump's election, there was a secret meeting with a Russian lawyer, and I looked up her name. I only had the ending of it. Her name was Natalia, and I can't pronounce her name. Can anybody pronounce the name?
Lana probably can.
Who?
Sister Lana, if she's here, she probably can.
Okay.
But she was here, but she's not here now.
Okay.
Natalia or something like that.
It's Natalia, but her last name is instead of saying K-A-Y-K-A, it's Sakaya at the end or something.
Oh.
It starts that way. So yeah, I'm not good at that. So anyway, so I'm just gonna say Natalia and the leaders of Trump's campaign team. Paul Manafort, who at that point was heading the campaign team, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and there were others. But really, top organizers of his campaign met secretly with the Russian lawyer. Her name is Natalia. Okay. And when that began to leak out to the press that they had met, Trump and his campaign team, at that stage, I think he was elected, they went into damage control. And Trump put out a statement saying that the meeting was about adoption, that he met with the Russian lawyer because she wanted to discuss Americans adopting Russian babies. And everyone thought that was strange. But if you knew the history of Bill Browder, that wouldn't be strange. Bill Browder was an investor in the stock market. And this part that I just kept it in there because it meant a lot to me. And I'm sure it'll mean a lot to some of you. She says, I don't understand technology or the stock market. I rely on other people to make sense to make that sense to me. And I myself am quite a bit illiterate, but I'm going to learn. All I know is that he went into the Soviet Union after the fall. Dang. I don't know how to get rid of this. Let me turn it off. Let me turn my phone off. That'll do it. Okay. All I know is he went into the Soviet Union after the fall of communism and quickly went from nothing to a billionaire because of how he was able to invest in an economy that had just moved from communism and started privatization. Does anyone know what that is?
Privatization.
Yeah, can you explain that? Is it like a private sector? Is it just private people or?
Companies are private owned. Is that correct? Right way to say that for anybody that's listening?
Private owned?
Private owned as opposed to.
Okay, I don't know. I was just wondering. That's why I'm going to ask questions because I don't know. So if someone wants to look it up and put it on the chat, that would be good for all of us who don't know. Okay, and then so he became a billionaire quite quickly. And in becoming a billionaire at the end of the Cold War, he began to notice a great deal of corruption by the oligarchs. This is when the oligarchs were coming up and becoming powerful. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a minute because you didn't get this section where I was curious of who the oligarchs were, but it's not so much of who they are, it's what they are. And what they are is a group. They could either be like a CEO, they could be some sort of business, they could be in something that is just a certain little group who controls a whole lot of money by stealing and corruption, and they can change the stocks, they just can influence. And so it's just a small set of people. That's who the oligarchs are. And I looked that up. What is an oligarchy and what does it mean? That's how I Googled that. Okay. Okay, so, okay, oligarchs. Okay, this is when the oligarchs were coming up and becoming powerful. And he started noticing how corrupt these oligarchs were, and he began investigating them. He began to investigate them around the time Vladimir Putin became president in 1999. And at first, Vladimir Putin would help Bill Browder. When Bill Browder would uncover corruption in Russia, Putin would step in and charge those who were corrupt. And then Bill Browder started to notice a change. What happened at that time is Vladimir Putin started bringing Russia under control. He went into a deal with the Russian mafia. So Russia is now a mafia state. There is no separation from their police force and from the mafia. All come under the one head of Vladimir Putin. They're the mafia state. Okay. The other thing that he brought in under control were the oligarchs. So now when Bill Browder is uncovering corruption, he is now uncovering Vladimir Putin's corruption. Because now all the corruption of the oligarchs, when they are siphoning hundreds of millions of dollars into their own bank account and crushing competition, a new portion of all that money, it's a kind of rough estimate that the percentage goes to Vladimir Putin himself. He's the richest man alive. Bill Browder speculates Vladimir Putin's personal wealth between $200 and $500 billion. And he's been able to get that because of the secret deals with the oligarchs. He controls everything in Russia. So Bill Browder has started to uncover corruption. He went back to Vladimir Putin. He got shot down in Russia, barred from entering the country. And when he tried to fight back, he left his Russian lawyer. His name is Sergei Magnitsky. This was his lawyer. He uncovered corruption in his own company, where someone had stepped in and charged his company with tax evasion. And what they did was took out millions and millions of dollars in taxes. They called for a tax refund from the government. They got it in one day. They siphoned it. They siphoned that of themselves. So they took millions from his company. Bill Browder left his lawyer there to fight it. Sergei Magnitsky. But now those millions of dollars that should go to people directly answering to Vladimir Putin. So Putin now again turned from an ally. So Putin's now again turned from an ally to against him. Oh, I guess it's against Bill Browder, I guess. Yeah. Right? Does that sound correct? So now he's turned against Bill Browder.
Yes.
Okay.
Who did?
So it sounds like since Bill Browder was investigating the oligarchs, and then once Putin got a hold, control of the oligarchs or went in, with them, Putin then went against Bill Browder because he was still doing investigations. And Putin didn't want him around anymore. So that's what I'm thinking.
There was a time period where Bill Browder was finding out that oligarchs were siphoning money, and he told Putin, and Putin would help get those oligarchs out of the way. That was before Putin had control of them. But then Putin got control of the oligarchs and was using them to siphon money into his own account.
Right.
Bill Browder found out, and then Putin's like, well, no, you're not going to out me, buddy.
Right.
So you just get on out of here.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you, sister.
No problem.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, long story short, his lawyer ended up arrested, was tortured in a Russian prison, was beaten, they tried to force him to sign a confession saying that he had orchestrated all the allegations of corruption were made up. When he refused to do that, they tied him to a bed and beat him to death with metal poles. That happened in prison. His lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, he was a young guy, married with 2 children. He died in a Russian prison under Vladimir Putin's sanction to cover up the corruption under the oligarchs. Okay, so on the resources that I gave you, the story of that is on that page, the whole story. So there's more to the story. He was beaten. They said it was like rubber something, not rubber, but it was a different kind of whipping that he got with. They didn't say metal. And he was in there for a while. They beat him, but there was a little bit more to it about how long it took and things like that. It wasn't just as quick as this little snippet says. So.
It was like a year or more that
Yeah.
they just kept shuffling him in different prisons,
Right.
taking his food away, taking his bed away. That
Right.
guy was so like sick
Yes.
and withered away by the
Yeah.
time they beat him to death. Yeah, it was a horrible story.
And there was one guard who testified to it, and that's the story that I have on the resources on the end of the pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Bill Browder has then made it the rest of his life work to bring in Russian sanctions. So he went to the United States, he's traveled the world, and brings in what's known as a Magnitsky Act. And this is his lifelong work of revenge. He's named it after his lawyer that died. The harshest sanction in Russia at the time really came because of the campaigning of Bill Browder. So he goes to Germany, to Australia, he went to the United States, and they all brought in Russian sanctions named after the lawyer Sergei Magnitsky. That the government had killed him. So when they introduced the Magnitsky Act, Vladimir Putin gets angry and says, okay, if you're going to do sanctions, if you're going to sanction me with this Magnitsky Act, he responded, was to ban Americans from adopting Russian children. It's a strange response, but it's a cruel one. You had all these families trying to adopt babies, and they just took all the children from them. So there was a Russian lawyer, Natalia. So there's a Russian lawyer, Natalia's task was following Bill Browder around the world and repealing these Magnitsky Acts. So when Trump says this meeting is entirely innocent because it's about adoption Russian babies, the adoption of Russian babies were directly tied to Russian sanctions. So it's not an innocent thing they were discussing. They were discussing the United States sanctions on Russia and what the Trump administration would do about it. Let me say and what the United States administration would do about if Trump was elected. Okay. I just want to give a little more revision about this. What brought us here, so we're going on to another topic. What brought us here was Acts 27. And we saw that from Cyprus, which was Penium, which is Sunday law, you saw the overturning of the United States. It's the end of the 6th kingdom and introduction of the 7th. And we ask, why does the United States, what does this fall of the United States look like? And we agree that it had more power after the Sunday law than before. Because it's the United States that compels the world to worship the beast. So if the United States is more powerful after, what's happening in this history to bring about the 7th kingdom of Bible prophecy? And the conclusion we came to is the fall of the United States, the fall of the king of the South, that makes the United States the one world superpower. That's what makes it so powerful. But it's also the destruction of republicanism. I think we can see 2016 that the government has already ended. In one sense, republicanism fell with the election of Donald Trump, but he's still restrained. He's restrained by war on two fronts, Western Front, Eastern Front. Both are restraining him. So 2016, you already have the end of republicanism. But if there's enough of a remnant in republicanism, they're in their situation, they're in their institution to hold him back. And so you see Raphael less restrained, Panium less restrained, and it isn't until this history you see the Eastern Front. Once the Eastern Front is completely unrestrained, and there we can most completely mark the destruction of the Republican horn. But you can build on an argument to see it in 2016. Now, I didn't know even though Adriana gave all that good information, it still didn't click into my head. I don't retain well sometimes, and I didn't retain what actually the Eastern and Western Front is. So on the back resources that I put the definitions on there for those of you who may not have known or understood it. I don't know how really it will apply because it's a different time and they just give a definition, but it did help me, okay? One of the reasons that I want to make that argument is because people want to think that Donald Trump is somehow good in this history, and then he does something bad in the future. And I think we can see that he is what he is from the very start. All that's happened is that there's a restraint on him. So Robert Mueller is restrained, Nancy Pelosi is restrained, all these things are restraining him. Now, I know that we all have different opinions, and I know that we really don't get political, but I know that we do see Donald as, I see Donald as, from the very start, even though my brother would watch the Fox News all the time, and I pretty much, believed what they were saying until, I heard about the two streams. But from the very beginning, Donald Trump does not know how to shut his mouth. He does not know how to be proper. He does not know how to speak correctly. But I think, well, I know because I read it by watching those editorials, that he has been like this since he was a kid. He's still a kid on the playground. He's still the bully of the block. And people follow Trump because he's different, and our world has changed. It's upside down. It's backwards. So now he's just producing more people with a mindset of being hateful people against people of different color or a different thought, or we've just become upside down. Donald Trump has been and always will be a loudmouth bully, but people love him, and we know that they love him for only the wrong reason, for their purpose. It's not because Donald Trump is doing anything good. What he's doing good, he's getting help, and he is helping the country, but it's all for a reason. There's things behind it. So I just wanted to throw that in there, okay? Okay, and that's my opinion. Okay, so my opinion can mean nothing, but that's just my opinion. Let's see. Did I read this? Yeah. Okay, we mentioned Jerry Falwell. There's 2 years, 2016 to 2018. If we're going to be rough about it, that's a 2-year investigation. The Russian investigation, Robert Mueller's investigation. We talk about Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell came out a couple of weeks ago, and he said Donald Trump had 2 years taken from his presidency because they were restraining him. So he should have another 6-year term, not a 4-year term. Donald Trump really liked that. he's retweet. So he's retweet. How do you say that? Retweeted it. So he liked it so much he keeps retweeting it. So you have his own base, Jerry Falwell, leading conservative Christian American, to say that Donald Trump should be gifted a 6-year term because he's been restrained. And he's right. Donald Trump has been restrained, but that's a good thing for us. And the restraint hasn't ended in 2018 because the Democrats haven't stopped investigating. He's still facing restraint. And then when 2019 comes and war on the Eastern Front, that's a whole type of restraint. Now, from what I'm getting from here, I don't know, I'm not Republican and I'm not Democrat. Both wings are from the same bird. I've never been into politics. All I know is that I used to be Democrat. I didn't know what a Democrat was. It was just, we're low class and, everyone's a Democrat, low class. And then when I learned that you don't get, you have to work for your money, you don't get anything for free, it changed me. It changed my thinking that, I shouldn't trust the government. I don't need the food stamps. I don't need this. I need to work for myself. So I never voted, but I became conservative, instead of a socialism, maybe, I guess, I don't know. And what was my reason for saying that? Oh, so now when we're learning these messages, and we're learning about the Constitution, and we're learning about the two streams, and then we find that what we learned, we have to relearn. It's all showing us in different types now, because now we're going to Constitution and now we're going to streams and stuff like that. We're learning in a different way that we have to learn all over. So when it comes like to the Constitution, we have to, instead of, us being the Adventists and, we're against the LGBT because we don't want to make them a cake or whatever, we can't do that. We have to give them their right, because it's their right to be who they are when it comes to, things like that. So I have learned a lot just by doing this report, or this presentation, and seeing all these other things that bring that out too, if that makes any sense to anybody. I just want to put my little input in on here, because honestly, people, my friends, my family, I struggle with things, and I don't retain things, and it's only God who's gotten me this far, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm praying that, that those of you who are having struggle like I am, that I'm praying that this helps us, because let us come out here, even when you do your presentations, and not be afraid, because I've been afraid, but I just knew that I was going to come out and do it anyway, no matter how silly I sound, because God's leading and he's helping me, and he'll help you too. So I just want to put that out there for you guys. Okay. All right. So we lined this up with 1989, because this is another time. We see the fall of the King of the South to 1991. And if there hadn't have been intervention in this history, I would suggest we would have seen the 7th. And if we see the 7th, this is not 1991. Does that make sense? This is not 1991. It's also 2003. So even on the 6th and the 7th, I'm kind of like a little bit confused on, because I know it means the 6th or the 7th head. And I know that one falls and then we become the 7th, but still I'm even not clear on all that. But this is going to help me understand more, when it should be easy. But like I said, I have a lot on my plate, and the Lord is going to guide. 2 Iraq wars in 2003, we get a glimpse of what this looks like. And it's George Bush saying to the United Nations, I'm the boss. And I don't care about France or Germany or Russia. If I want to invade another country, I will. You're either with the United States or you're against the United States. But other restraints were brought in. And we can all raise our hand and say that we remember hearing that day. I just want to refer to a couple of quotes. Okay, John, and I think I got this name, I'm not sure. Adriana, do I have that name, Gaddis? Is that correct? John Lewis Gaddis?
How's it spelled?
Gaddis?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. John Lewis Gaddis is a Cold War historian. He wrote around the time the fall of the Soviet Union about what he saw as the key characteristics of this potential new order that George Bush was speaking about. He said that this was namely an unchallenged American supremacy, increasing integration, resurgent nationalism, and religious, how do you say that?
How do you?
Religiosology?
Yeah, that sounds.
Is that right? Okay. Confusing words.
Religiosity.
National, huh?
Yeah, religiosity.
Okay. Nationalism and a call back to religion. Off and hang up and keep it off the hook. Then we read the quote that it had been assumed that after the fall of the Soviet Union, that old bipolar world, meaning world by meaning two, that it would beget to a multipolar world, many, the United Nations, globalism. And many people were afraid of that. The immediate post-Cold War did not become that. It became unipolar. One, the center of world power is an unchallenged superpower the United States attended by its Western allies. It kind of reminds me, this was cute, it kind of reminds me back of when this is Tess talking and she's giving us an analogy, okay? This kind of reminds me back of when I used to be forced to watch chick flicks with my female housemates, and there would always be the kind of school ground, and you would always have that one girl who's really mean, and then there's all the other ones that follow her. So I thought that was an analogy. It really bothered her to see Australia follow the United States the way we do, but that's the kind of supremacy it's talking about. But it's not become this multilateral world that was expected under what we tend to call globalism. I want to refer to this New York Times article. Last year, it's titled The UN General Assembly. So it's talking about Donald Trump speaking before the United Nations. I want to read a part of this article, and it goes like this. President Trump's whose apocalyptic speech in the United Nations, I can say the word, I can't say it, what's that, say it?
Dubai?
Well, no, you know, like you give a speech, it's
Dubious?
D-U-T, Dubai. So, anyway, so he's given a speech last year. It riveted much of the world's attention.
Oh, debut.
Debut, thank you.
I was like, what's a D button?
I know, huh? Okay. Okay, so Donald Trump gave a speech in the UN. He gave a debut last year, riveted so much of the world's attention. Spoke again, the world's most important, important diplomatic stage on Tuesday at the UN New York headquarters. Donald Trump has alienated allies and cited to adversities, all while he pursues an American first agenda. Mr. Trump boasted of what he called impressive accomplishments in the United States and around the world. Quoting Donald Trump, in less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than any administration in the history of our country. The UN world leaders burst into laughter. You can watch this on YouTube, she says. He goes silent, and then he says, I did not expect that reaction. Then he begins to list his complaints, and his complaints are about globalism. He said globalism is a threat to America's sovereignty. Mr. Trump rejected their legitimacy of international criminal court, echoing recent statements by top aides like John Bolton, his national security advisor. As far as America is concerned, Mr. Trump said, the court which persecutes war crimes and crimes against humanity has no legitimacy and no authority. So the UN court that is tasked with investigating and prosecuting war crimes can touch virtually any country except the United States. They tried about a month ago to investigate the United States for war crimes, and it was made very clear to them the United States would not cooperate. We're untouchable. And then Donald Trump says, quote, we reject the ideology of globalism. Let's see, so that's 8. Okay. So all this time, we've been fearing globalists. And that's the only thing that has been holding us back. That's been holding back the United States. So there again, you know, maybe we thought, I don't know, because I didn't know about all this stuff. So I guess a lot of people were thinking that globalism was bad because the definitions Christina had given us, and then there's some back in these notes. So so it will tell us why globalism is good for us, but at the time I didn't know any of it. Okay. President Emmanuel Macron of France, during his time at the podium, defended multilateralism, a policy that Mr. Trump had rejected. Mr. Macron had warned without multilateralism, global wars would return, and they did. Iraq War, Afghanistan, they started coming back. He cautions that nationalism always leads to defeat. He says, I do not accept the erosion of multilateralism, and I don't accept the unraveling of our history. Our children are watching. Okay. G-U-T-U-R. Okay. Adriana, G-U-T-E-R-R-E-S. Gutierrez? Gutierrez. Okay, thank you.
Or something.
Okay. There's no kind of like slash apostrophe thing that gives me an accent. Gutierrez,
Gutierrez. I don't know, but it's fine. No, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, who was first to address the General Assembly on Tuesday, called for solidarity among members nation and urged the world leaders to help revitalize the global body at a time when multilateralism is, quote, under fire. He focused his speech on a, quote, trust deficit disorder playing out around the world that has affected the United Nations' ability to function. And again, the resources on the back page, I did some sort of definition or meaning on that. People don't, playing out around the world that has the United Nations because they're terrified. Oh, wait. Playing out around the world that has affected the United Nations' ability to function. So what's the problem? People don't trust the United Nations because they're terrified of globalism because of conspiracy theories. So I guess this is another reason why it's so much more for us to lay aside any misconceived, any kind of conspiracy theories that we were ever taught, because if it's a conspiracy, that's just what it is. It's a theory, you know. We want facts. And it's affected their ability to function. He also cited division in the Security Council. He says we must repair broken trust. We must invigorate our multilateral project, and we must uphold dignity once and for all. We haven't yet done, okay, now she's skipping down, it's another paragraph, different subject. We haven't yet done World War II. We're not going to do it in any detail for time, but we understand that 2016, there's war on what front? And then she says, it's the Western Front. You can see that as internal American politics. That was one whole sentence, sorry. I will say that, and just let me interrupt, because I would like those who are still trying their best and to do the verbatim. Sometimes the words are not what they are. I had to go back to the Bible. I had to go back online. I had to look up stories just to find the right names. And like on TV, you will have the closed caption correct, but on the videos, words will just like come together to a word you don't even understand. So I apologize for if something is amiss. It was just that I couldn't get it and I just pressed on. Okay. And those Western alliances are restraining him. It gives us time. And we understand that that continues through and is joined by the Eastern Front when we see the conflict between Russia at Rafah. So I just wanted us to see a little bit of how that's been playing out on the world stage, as far as it not being a secret thing, that the conflict even now under Donald Trump is the exact same one that was on 1990. That was very long, so I don't understand that, but thank you, John, for the charts. And a problem a bit between whether or not the world becomes multilateralism or unilateralism. Really, the world under United Nations alliances like the European Union or under American supremacy and nationalism. And we know from prophecy that it's nationalism that will win out populism. Wow. Okay, so we're going to another subject or another line. So I want to get back to Acts 27. What's the theme of our ship? What's its story? What does the ship represent? Anyone have an answer? What does the ship represent in Acts 27?
The institutions.
Excuse me?
The institutions.
USA and
am I saying it wrong? Okay, what's the theme of our ship? Well, the answer she has here, it's abiding in death, but who's abiding in death? So it's church and state and the United States institution and Adventism. So the one boat is church and state, and then the United States institution are, no, it's the same thing. Okay, so I'm trying to help myself. So church and state, the United States institution, and Adventism institution. So it's the two institutions. I'm learning. Okay, I'm on 10. Okay, so she asked questions, and I'll just ask if you guys know them, and if not, I'll just say them. Did we at any point give the first angel's message to Reagan or George Bush in 1989? No. So straight away, we should start to see what about our reform line. It's symbolic. It's showing us the path, not of people, but of an institution. which was good to understand because I know that we've been doing acts and of course I didn't retain, but now I'm understanding more about the ship being one ship and the I guess maybe the streams of two ships, the thinking of two ships, the good and the bad and all that. So I'm learning.
To help you out, if it's okay, because it took me a minute to figure out how they're both one ship also.
Okay.
The Adramyttium shows only the bad part of the story. The Alexandria shows the ship from the beginning in 1798 when it started out good and then it went slowly down. But it's holding together till Sunday Law, but it's going slowly down.
Okay.
So it's the same ship. It's just the Adramyttium is the shorter story that starts in 1989. The Alexandria starts in 1979.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, the Adramyttium starts in 1798. Or sorry, the Alexandria starts in 1798.
Isn't that what I said? I thought I said 1798.
I thought you said 1978.
Oh, whatever. I don't know. When the first angel came down in 1798, that's when the Alexandria starts, and then the Adramyttium is 1989. Yeah.
Okay. I just heard 1979 and I didn't know if
Could definitely be. I get confused as well.
It's Alexandria in 1798.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Caesarea, you can mark Felix to Festus and Agrippa. It's the United States and Adventism. Then we saw 9/11. So am I saying Cyprus as CYPRUS or is it Cyprus CYE? Because I couldn't see the board and I couldn't tell online. So which one is it?
CYPRUS.
RUS. Okay, great. Then I got it.
I think so.
Well, that's what I have on my paper because I think I did try to figure it out and then maybe because I went back to the Bible and it said Cyprus. So that's what I wrote because I was writing the ESS before. So and then a couple times in here you'll see Lycia. So for the whole long time I was doing LYCIA only because I couldn't, it was running through. So I was looking up on the map, so I seen that spelling. I didn't see the LESEA, and then I realized it's the LESEA. So
there's two. There's Lycia, which is where Myra was at, and then there's Lassia, which is where they went after Cnidus. But it'll show up on your line.
Oh, okay, but I'm just saying that I was having trouble on which one to use, and I was doing it wrong, so there may be error here, okay? But I did try to correct a lot of it. Okay. I just want everyone to know who's still doing their paper, and it's not, just press on. It's going to be okay. That's all. Okay, so I'll start here. So Caesarea. Put this in the drawer. I have my phone off the hook because it was ringing, so then it's beeping, so now it's in the drawer. Okay.
Your brother doesn't need to contact you on any of those phones, does he? Because
he can't use the he can't figure out the phone. He'll come to my door if he needs me, but I already put him to bed and tucked him in.
Okay.
Okay. But my cat's at the door, so let me just let him out. I'm sorry, Grace. No. Go. I apologize. He hangs out in the closet for hours and he needs to go down. Okay. So Caesarea, you can mark Felix to Festus and Festus and Agrippa in the United States and Adventism. We then saw 9/11, Cyprus. Sorry, this is Sidon. Cyprus, Myra, a city of Lycia, and between Cyprus and Myra, you have the Sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia. Pamphylia, that's close. And if we were to put this date to these, 1989, 9/11, Panium, Sunday Law, and our line ends at Sunday Law because that's where we marked the end of those institutions. Sidon, we marked a refreshing. We could see that it was representative in Bible prophecy as the United States. At Cyprus, it meant fair. We can mark the living testimony. We could also mark two false prophets, an internal and an external. All takes us to Myra in Lycia, where we can mark bitterness and harvest. If you will turn to Acts 27, we'll start in verse 5. Does someone want to read that? They could go to the Bible or just read off the notes. Because does someone else want to do some reading?
Sure. Acts 27.
Verse 5.
At 5 or 6? 5?
It says 5.
Okay. And when we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, and he put us therein. And when we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind not suffering us.
Okay, hold on. I think she stopped. She stopped that, and he put us therein. You don't have your notes with you?
She was reading out the Bible.
Oh, I know, but it's in here on the Bible too. So, but do you have your notes with you, Christina? I mean, Adriana?
I can't put them on
okay.
the screen right now because I'm recording, so I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. No, it's fine.
All right. So after that verse, it says, so that they're at Myra, and it's here that they change ships, and they get on a different ship. It's the ship of Alexandria, and Alexandria means protector or defender of the people. So is this a good ship or a bad ship? Audience?
A good ship.
Amen. It's a good ship.
Good ship. Yeah.
The ship of Adurinium could see is a bad ship. For the ship of Alexandria is a good ship. We can mark it at Myra. I want us to skip down some because we need to work through this logically, where it fits on our reform line. If you were to go to chapter 27, verse 14, Adriana, you want to read that and I'll tell you when to stop?
Yep. But not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. And when the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive. And running under a certain island which is called Clauda.
Okay. That's good. So she stopped there when it says Euroclydon. Okay? You read really good fast. I'm still trying to find where I'm at. Okay. So we know that in this history at Myra, they changed ships. We labeled Myra and Lycia as Sunday law, and we've marked bitterness and harvest. So they've got on this new ship, they've gone on quite a journey, and it's somewhere down here when they come into this part of the sea, they hit a tempestuous storm known as Euroclydon. And what does Euroclydon mean? Anybody? What does Euroclydon mean?
East wind.
The
East wind, yes. It's from two words, eros, which means an easterly, and clydon, which means it cyclonic. So it's like an easterly cyclone. So the east wind strikes, and it really destroys the ship. Where do we mark the east wind on our reform line? Can you see the problem? We have two choices when we come to these ships. We can see that either we have first the ship of Adurinium and then the ship of Alexandria, one after the other. We must decide whether they are one after the other. Does that make sense? Well, that's just what it wrote out to be. Whether they are one after the other, we must decide whether they are one after the other.
I think what she's trying to say is, are they one after another, or are they
Or the same ship.
same ship? Yeah.
Okay,
Repeat
okay.
and enlarge kind of thing.
Or
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, that is what she's trying to say. Okay, 1989 to Sunday law forward, or if there are repeat and enlarge. So yeah, John, you just answered that. So is the ship of Adriana following the ship of Adrianium, or is it the same story with more information?
Adriana.
Did I say Adriana?
I think
You called it the ship of Adriana.
Well, I'm trying to pronounce it. I just
That's a lot
can't.
easier.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So she would suggest, based on the external event, the symbols were given on the ship of Alexandria, that is a repeat and enlarge. So if they're a Aeroclydon, it's the east wind and it's 9/11. What is Myra and Lycia? What's the bitterness in the harvest before 9/11? When do we mark a harvest? Before 9/11? What's harvested at 1989? So there was just a bunch of questions, but there was no answers to them.
She's
Okay,
gonna,
huh?
she gets into it at some point. I think
Oh, okay.
probably, I think she might have gone into that in the part that's missing in my presentation because there's an hour missing.
Oh, okay.
So we'll never know, I guess. Questions.
Well, yeah, but shouldn't we know the Aeroclydon is the east wind at 9/11? So what is Myra and Lycia? Those are two ships. We know that, right? Oh,
No, Myra is a city of
it's a
Lycia.
city of Lycia. Yeah. Let's move on. See, we all need to keep learning.
Well,
What?
hold on, because I'm just gonna, let me just check this, because I put in all the work in making that chart, so I'm gonna look at it.
Exactly.
Okay, so before our time, when in the Advent history was there a bitter harvest? Let's say a disappointing harvest.
1844.
That's the
Yes.
question. So that's what it is. But when in 1844?
October 22nd.
Second.
So it's October 22nd, 1844 is where she has it. And then Alexandria is the wheat, the protector, the defender of the people. That's where she put it 1798.
Just keep going because the whole thing is going to cover all that.
Great.
Oh.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
If we were to step back, we skip quite a few verses. So we mark Aeroclydon in verse 14. If we were to step back to verse 8, this is where they are just before Aeroclydon. It would be the last waymark we could mark. It's Lycia. And hardly passing it, they came into a place which is called the Fair Havens. Nigh whereunto was the city of Lycia. And here they spend quite a long time. Lycia has a couple of meanings. The clearest I like is it means wise. At Laodicea, hold on. Go to bed. At Laodicea, what does Paul do? And then continuing to read, now when much time was spent, when the sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them and said unto them, Sirs, as I perceive that this voyage will be with much hurt, much damage, not only of lading and ship, but also of lives. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which spoken by Paul. And because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised to depart thence also. If by any means they Huh? Go
Sorry.
ahead.
This makes me think, I know I'm jumping ahead because we're going to mark that at 1989, but it makes me think of the whole hullabaloo that Jeff had with the leadership, because all the way up to the conference knew about what Jeff was talking about. So he literally warned them all, and they decided to continue on this wrong course of action.
When did he warn them? Was that in between?
It was in between, yeah. But they had a warning.
Yeah.
And around what year?
It was
96.
might have been.
He rejected Time of the End magazine, right? And that was, but he was presenting openly before that. And then when he, I mean, for what I understand is when he published Time of the End magazine, it was rejected by the church, what he was saying. And then he was becoming more and more ostracized in the church.
Yeah, he eventually got kicked out, but it was because of his station and the what was that thing called, before Future for America was Future for America, that other ministry he was in, it was like
Hope International or something like that. It was like,
he knew some higher up, so it ended up going to pretty much, I'm pretty sure it went up to the conference what this shenanigans was he was doing, and so they literally, the whole Adventism in this country rejected it.
Which says a lot, because if the whole of Adventism had to have heard it right at that time.
Right.
It was the
leadership.
Yeah.
I believe it was the BRI, in particular, Biblical Research Institute, that really passed judgment on him and said no.
Well, they decide, don't they? They decide what we're allowed to use for prophecy and what we're not allowed to use. That it's BRI, and then they also every year they do it's called DARCOM. It's the Daniel and Revelation Committee, and so I think every year they have this committee, and people are allowed to present their prophetic understanding, and they debate it between all the leaders or whatever during this committee. It happens over a weekend or something like that. And then they just kind of decide what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. And it seems like nothing really comes out that is all that acceptable. It's just, I mean, it's not like anyone else ever gets to hear about it, whatever it is that they're talking about in there. But
could somebody repeat what year BRI has rejected 2520?
2520 would have been after 2005.
I think it was 2005.
Or it was 2005.
That's when it got recognized.
Yeah.
But I think what he was showing them was Daniel 11:40 to 45 in that time period. So that's what they would have rejected.
Right.
Yeah.
He did it as well. I guess it's what I'd never heard that term before. What you called it, the year they did.
DARCOM?
In 2003 or 2004, that one that I want to say it was Oklahoma, but that you can find those videos if anybody hasn't watched them. But where he presented, they got together, a bunch of them got together, and so I'm guessing that's I didn't know that was a yearly thing, but that's where he had his opportunity and he presented things from Daniel 11:40 to 45, talked about the Time of the End magazine, and they rejected it there as well.
Mm-hmm. I think DARCOM is just a part of the BRI. I don't know if maybe it's not yearly, but I know they had one last year.
Yeah.
The laity never hear about it. That sort of thing. Just, the leaders kind of go, they discuss what they're, whatever they want to discuss, but it doesn't show up in a Sabbath school quarterly, or you just never hear anything about it.
Because we're on a need to know basis, and if we don't need to know, they don't tell us.
That's exactly it. Very papal of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit down in that pew and just wait, and they'll let you know what you need to know when it's time.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to continue.
Yep.
So if he were at Lycia, what does Paul do? He goes to the leadership and gives them a message, and it's rejected. Where has he done that before? 1989. So at Caesarea, Paul gives a message to the leadership. They reject it. At Lycia, the one other place in this chapter, Paul gives a message to the leadership, and they reject it. It's also where we mark the wise. And if we're going to repeat the parable of the 10 virgins, this is where we should mark its beginning. So if Laodicea is 1989, what is Myra? What would we mark harvest? Before 1989? 1844, what about bitterness? Where would we mark that? Disappointment. Disappointment? Well, I have a question mark there, but it says disappointment. This is October 22nd, 1844. This was the harvest. It's why they went from thousands down to double digits. A bitter experience. Sweet in the mouth, bitter in the belly. This is the experience of October 22nd, 1844. So if this is a good ship, the ship Alexandria, it's the protector or defender of the people. Okay. In the Roman world, at that point in time, their bread basket was along the Nile River. So to feed the Roman Empire, they grew a lot of their grain along that Nile River. And they would then transport it up to the city of Alexandria into massive grain silos. Loaded on 2 ships that were known as the ships of Alexandria, and then transport over the Roman Empire. So this ship began in Alexandria, and it's there that it's loaded with wheat. We can see that it's loaded with wheat because if you scroll up through the chapter, go to verse 38, they're going to lighten the ship, which means they're going to throw out the cargo. We've been eating enough. They lightened the, let me see. When they've eaten enough, they lighten the ship and throw out the cargo. What did they throw out? They threw out the wheat. That's what has loaded, that was loaded into the ships of Alexandria. This ship did not start in Myra. It started in Alexandria, where it is filled with wheat. So, what is Alexandria? 1798. What begins in 1798 that protects or defends the people? The United States, the lamb-like beast. And what else begins in 1798? The Millerite movement. I'm going to call it the Seventh-day Adventists. Even though they don't yet have the seventh day, that's what's beginning in 1798. So these 2 ships, Aduranium, what does the ship represent? The United States and Adventism. The ship of Alexandria, what does it represent? The United States and Adventism. The ship of Aduranium, Caesarea, it's the 4th generation. All the way through, you can mark the 4th generation. Is it a bad ship? Is it in a dead condition and it chooses to abide in death? That wasn't a question. It sounded like a question. Okay. But we do a repeat and enlarge, and it's a good ship. It protects it. But we do a repeat and enlarge, and it's a good ship. It protects or defends the people. In 1798, the United States is not in a dead condition and abiding in death. Adventism is not dead condition and abiding in death. You can't put the ship of Aduranium in 1798. But in 1798, the United States and Adventism are protecting and defending the people and the message. So if you're going to see the United States and Adventism as good, you don't mark it beginning in 1989. You have to begin back in 1798. So in 1798, you can mark the United States and Adventism in Adventism. 1844 for Adventism, you see a bitter experience in a harvest. What happens to the United States in 1844? And there's a question mark, and it says, 1798, a lamb-like beast arises, and what does it have? What's like about it? 2 horns. What happens in 1844? 1 horn falls. They lose a horn, the Protestant horn. What we begin to see is that we can mark the United States and Adventism together at every single waymark. They are inseparable. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yes.
For anyone, I guess, because I'm not sure who understands. Why is she marking October 22nd, or why is she marking 1844 as the breaking of the Protestant horn? I think we talked about that the other day, because normally it was marked in, I think, 42, but now it's being put into 44. Does anyone know?
I think it's because of April 19th. She has statements about the Protestants after April 19th because they had.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. They hadn't had, the moment happen. So some of them were still wondering, well, is it going to happen? That's the date they predicted. Let's see. So after it didn't come to happen that first time, the people just turned on them and became bitter, horrible enemies and just really lashed out. And so it was only the people who really were like hardcore who held out to October 22nd, who went back to look at their Bibles after that.
The 50.
But they were both 44. So I think where I got that idea was from the chart book. They've put it as closed door for Protestantism was in 1842. I think when they first published the 1843 chart.
Yeah.
It came out in 42, but I think that chart book is just slightly inaccurate because that's new information.
She has a statement actually that she says the Protestant churches started to shut their doors on the message in 1842, but it wasn't complete, I don't think, till April 19th.
Yeah, that would have been their November 9th kind of thing.
Like a close of probation for them. Yeah,
close of probation, not their
Great. Madeleine?
Their testing point.
Yeah, and the papers in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start at 1798. It begins at Alexandria. It is defending the people. It's defending the United States as defending through the Constitution. That Constitution, that protection is going to last all the way up until the Sunday Law, just like the ship. So the United States, while it's also a bad ship, it's also a good ship, all the way to the Sunday Law. It must be a good ship till Sunday Law, because it's not until then that you see the Constitution fully overturned. All right, we go back to verse 6, so that we can place some waymarks. So in verse 6.
Sorry, I just have to say this because I was reading this the other day and it made me really think about that. So the United States has a good part to it and a bad part to it, right? Isn't that what we're saying? It's one ship, but it has a good side and a bad side. When that ship wrecks, if you read it, it says the front forepart of the ship stood still and it was strong, but the hinder part broke apart and fell away. So I wonder if that's where the good part stands, but the bad part, I don't know. But it was interesting that the nose of the ship.
Symbology. It's a symbol.
Yeah, the nose of it didn't break apart. It stuck fast in the ground, but the back part was the one that
part. Is that what you said? The hinder part?
Yeah, I think so.
That verse. I don't know why I don't know if this is it, but it pops into my mind when
it says, and falling into a place where 2 seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. So the forepart stuck and remained unmovable. So that's the good part, I think.
The children of Israel were coming out of Egypt. Who was in the hinder part?
The mixed multitude.
But the mixed multitude was back there. I don't know if that would they would it be considering Adventism as a mixed multitude?
I don't think that. I don't know that because that's not. I don't know. I think because when you look at the arrangement they were in when they were in the square in the wilderness, you had the priests and Levites around the temple, then you had Israel, and then you had the mixed multitude on the borders. So you had like the Levites, and then Protestants, and then the world people. So the Nethinims. So I don't think you can say the Nethinims fall off because some of them stay. Some of them come into the message.
Yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there.
Okay, I apologize to everybody out there who's been writing on chat. Can someone read chat, because there's a lot of stuff and we've been ignoring that.
I haven't.
They should have done the same. Yeah, they're just chit chatting there. I don't think there's any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, just that Christina or Francisco posted the link to those videos that I was talking about in Oklahoma.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I just don't want to ignore them. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So in verse 6, they find a ship of Alexandria. That's where Paul gets on board. In verse 7, it says, "And when we sailed slowly many days and scarce were overcome against
Snidus.
Thank you, the wind not suffering us, sailed under Crete over against Salmone." So they've left from Alexandria. They have passed Myra and Lycia, which means bitterness and harvest. They come over against Cnidus. Does anyone have a Bible and a map with Paul's fourth journey? I didn't put one out, but I know you had one up on yours, didn't you, Adriana, before?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can always refer to that, or just look in your Bible if you have the study Bible. Okay. I also want to note this is what number of Paul's missionary journeys. This is number 4. The number 4 becomes a repeating symbol. I think that's something that has been well established. What does the ship do at night? So it set sail in 1798. They have a destination, Rome. They're following a set course. You can see from the third journey the kind of direction it was meant to go. From 1798 through 1844, they are following this course. They get Cnidus, and then the verse tells us they didn't have a very good wind. And what do you do when you do not have a very good wind? They changed course. They changed the course of the direction and headed south. Okay, so they have a set plan, a route that they're meant to take. They are taking it consistently from 1798, and then there's difficult winds. What are the winds in the Bible? We know that's strife. So there is an external strife, and that causes them to change the direction of the ship. What's the external strife after 1844? The Civil War, 1861 to 1865. If we were to mark Adventism going off course, where would we mark 1863? In the middle of external winds or strife. And you can mark it for Adventism. You can mark it for the United States. In 1863 is when they formed the National Reform Movement. Everything goes wrong from 1863 internally and externally. And the resources I wrote down will be on the back of these notes, at the end of the notes. I wrote something about the Reform Movement also. Okay. So they have set course that they are meant to be going on. It's in 1863, and they head south. They head under Crete. Crete means fleshy, of the flesh. I would suggest you could call this the Laodicea condition. There's also Salmoni. I'm going to write flood. It's not quite flood, but it's like the tide. It's the concept of a wave of the ocean that's going to sweep over a rock and then wash sand back in. It's a wave that would wash over the shore. In that sense, I would suggest it's the same as we describe the flood. So is she saying the original flood? So, because I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand either.
I'm thinking about when the papacy comes in, like a flood, but
Well, she didn't put like the definite article, but she did say the flood. So I'm just wondering, was it the original flood? So, okay. Next paragraph. So between 1863 and 1898, this is how many years?
yeah, it is. That's when the papacy, or the, you know, when you have,
Yeah, because that's 126.
so
Okay.
it's like a flood that comes in
Okay.
Rome.
Okay. So between 1863 and 1989, this is how many years? It's a 1, 2, 3. And what's the 126, the 1260 a symbol of? Persecution.
I think it was meant to say 126.
Huh?
Not 1, 2. It was.
Well, that was what. That was what was written on the.
Yeah, probably it came
but it
out
should have been
wrong.
just 126, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's 1260, right? So that's 0.
My apologies.
It's all-
It's a 126. And what's the 1260 a symbol of? Persecution. What's our persecution? What are we drinking in this? What are we drinking in this time? The wine of Babylon. It's papal persecution, but it is through doctrine. So we have fleshy and we have the flood, but it is at nidus that we go off course. Question: does the United States ever get back on course? No. I don't know what is like. Okay, so she's gonna talk. I don't know what it is like here. I just know what it is like in Australia. I have heard this taught and believe it is accurate that we talk about 4 generations of Adventism. We can see that in 1863 there is a rejection of the 2520. But we get down into our history, and I remember a discussion that my mother had with our church pastor. She made a comment in Sabbath school that shook him, and he came to speak to her. He didn't like what she was teaching. He had no understanding of what it was. It just scared him. And what scared him was that she spoke of a close of probation, and he never heard that there was any such thing as a close of probation. He'd been through Avadal, our main pastor training university. All through his training, he had never been told that there was such a thing as close of probation.
That's kind of weird when you think about it.
That's
Don't we all know that this all comes to an end one day? What does that mean?
Right?
If it comes to an end, what does that mean?
Well, yeah, if we study the Sunday law and all that, the basics of, because we would just know, even the basics would tell us that there's an end.
If you read Revelation, it tells you.
Yeah.
Colleges don't teach any of that stuff, though. All they teach you is how to build a church, how to retain numbers, and all this stuff.
How to speak and train the audience with their voice.
Yep. How to fill seats.
Yep.
The end times, they believe that talking about the end times doesn't fill seats.
What does judgment mean? When you come to the point of judgment, what does it mean?
They don't want to talk about that.
That's just amazing. Wow.
What judgment? We're Seventh-day Adventists. We're not judged. We're Seventh-day Adventists. We're saved. We keep Sabbath.
We lost the first angel's message, right? You don't talk about the judgment anymore.
Right.
So they rejected the first angel. They don't teach that stuff.
They can't be benefited anymore. All right. Here's another Okay. I lived with a lovely Adventist who never heard of the statue of Daniel 2, let alone understand what it is. They wouldn't be able to tell you what the 2300 days is, let alone where it starts or ends. I know it's different. It's different in countries, and some are better educated on our history. But in Australia, that's what it's like.
Wow.
We've come down into our generation, and it has gone past rejecting the 2520. We come down into here, and we have no concept of what Adventism even is, us being the nominal church. So I just want us to consider that what we are doing at every waymark is taking two institutions, the United States and Adventism, and we are comparing and contrasting them, which means that they are having similar experiences. They start at the same time, they both grow to go through a difficult experience, they both go off course. So when we consider the United States, we are down into this history. And Donald Trump is saying he wants to make America great again. How many people in America or outside America knows what that even means? They have no concept of what the United States is meant to be, any more than a nominal Adventist who have not had some type of particularly good influence have any understanding what Adventism was meant to be. And this is one of the reasons I think it's important to revisit these time periods. And what Brother Tyler is doing, looking at the Constitution and trying to revisit this, because there is an ignorance for both. And people think, particularly conservative Christian Protestant America, think that they know what the United States is meant to be, but they are in the exact same condition as Adventism. If this, okay, so something else. If this is absolute darkness, fourth generation, everything is eaten. For the United States, it's 14th generation, absolute darkness. I repeated it, sorry. They don't even know what their Constitution means. They don't know who they are protecting. They don't even know they're meant to protect anyone. So if we are going to consider an increase of knowledge on what Adventism is meant to be, I think we also need to revisit what the United States was meant to be, which is one of the reasons that it's important, and we will revisit the history of the Civil War. So these are just some things that she's given us. So that was all bunched up together, and I guess I put my periods in some different places. So
that made sense.
Okay, great. So in 1989, Lycia, otherwise, Paul gives a message to the leadership. They reject it. Why do they reject it? If we were to go to, and then the audience asked the question, I couldn't understand what it said. So the answer was, so they must have been talking about the one of the verses. It says they believe the master and the owner, but they haven't yet left the port. So that I didn't understand the question. The answer was that the people said that they didn't believe the master and the owner, so they were talking about one of the verses.
That was the people on Paul's ship.
Oh, right.
When Paul warned them about the weather,
right,
the direction they were going to go, and they didn't listen to Paul. They rather listened to the owner. And yeah.
Right. Okay, great.
So
then it says, when do they leave? And it says, it's in verse 13, there at Lycia, and when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, losing thence, they sailed close by Crete. They leave from this port because of why? This question. So, if you are a ship, is the wind good or bad? Is the Well, she goes on to say, is the east wind good or bad?
It depends.
Yeah, so one was, yeah, it depends. The whole thing is it depends. If you're a ship, you want wind, otherwise you don't go anywhere. But you want the right wind, because we don't want the east wind. I just put that there myself, sorry.
No, it's not that. It depends on which direction you're going.
To where they're trying to get to?
Yeah, it
Okay.
depends on where you're going. You want a different wind depending on where you're headed.
Right.
Because
Okay.
a ship it can't drive straight because of, you need wind to hit the sails. My uncle's into this kind of thing. He's trying to explain it when it's complicated, but you don't go in a straight line, basically.
Right. Yeah, she writes it here about a shipbuilder. So we'll go into that.
Called
Yeah.
tack. Tacking is when you go side to side if you're going with the wind, so the sail will always face the wind, but it doesn't really.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Okay. So for the ship, the south wind comes. Is it a soft wind? And is it in the direction that they need to go or that they want to go? The direction they should go, but it's the direction that they wanted to go. So do you guys get any of that?
Yeah. So the south wind came and it was the right wind for where they wanted to go, but where they wanted to go was not where they should have gone. If they listened to Paul, the south wind wouldn't have worked for them.
Okay, gotcha.
I think it's talking about the south wind there, right?
Yeah, it says south wind. So the south wind comes and they choose to leave the port of Lasea and they're going to go on their journey. Paul warns them, don't do this. This is going to end badly. But they won't listen to him. They insist on setting sail anyway. There are 4 winds in Bible prophecy for the 4 directions of the compass. If the east wind is Islam, what is the south wind? King of the South. So in 1989, there is a favorable south wind. Favorable for the king of the north? Yes. So there's a favorable south wind, and that is what makes them leave a safe port. That they should not ever, that they should not have ever left from. And they go on their journey, and Paul warns them, if they do this, Islam is going to strike. If you take advantage of this south wind that's blowing and you go on the course that you want to towards a new world order, who's going to come up against you? Islam. Ellen White speaks about this, and she gives us an important principle. She said that if there's in that part of the Mediterranean, if there is a good south wind, you can be sure that the east wind is coming. And Adriana, you showed us that compass and taught us about that.
I did?
Yeah, you had the compass, the like east, west, north, and south, and we learned that.
I think that was Christine Elaine.
Oh, Christine.
Yeah.
That was Christine Elaine's presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, Christine showed us that.
Lane.
Oh, Christine.
Elaine.
Huh?
Elaine.
Okay, thank you.
Just while we're there, I don't know if I fully understand. I do understand. Okay, so this south wind was coming. It was in regards to the United States coming up against the King of the South in 1989. And the warning was if they take that south wind, if they take advantage of that south wind, then then Islam is going to be a problem down the road. And that's exactly what happened with the east wind in the story and in the United States. But trying to understand this, did God bring Islam against the United States? Do we consider that, or?
Yeah, because the east wind is his destroying wind that he uses. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he used it. Yeah, Islam was a tool.
Oh, I think I understand the problem because they were pursuing the wrong version of the New World Order, right? This was the American Supreme version.
John, if you go back into that history, there's this huge statement by someone in the UN or somewhere in government. she talked about it way back in the day. But at the same time that they were fighting the Soviet Union, they were fighting a proxy war against them in the Middle East also. So by the time you get to 1989, what they did is they fully are understanding that they strengthened and caused Islam to be as strong as it was, but they said it was better for us to have Islam than to have the Soviet Union. We needed them to bring down the Soviet Union, and if we had to make the same decision again and still have 9/11, we would still do that.
But I guess what I'm wondering, my main question was, why would God bring Islam against the U.S. if they were pursuing this New World Order? If the New World Order was actually supposed to be a good thing.
The New World Order.
The answer, I guess, is because the U.S. was going after that U.S. Supreme version of the New World Order, which was the wrong one compared to what Mikhail Gorbachev gave, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a all nations world order, not a U.S. on top world order. They're literally going for what they want to achieve at Sunday Law, right? Because that's what's going to happen at Sunday Law, is that is going to be complete, the New World Order with you. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Can I ask something?
Of course.
Okay. So the Lord is trying to help me process something in my mind, and so please bear with me. So these two ships are showing the structure, right? So what's coming into my mind about the good and the bad ship, because we're seeing what the structures were meant to be for God's purpose, and on those ships are God's people, right? So what I'm seeing is that because I guess what God is showing me is that the reason why the ship it's telling the story of like two ships, we know that, but God has a purpose in allowing the good ship to prevail, because he has his people still in the SDA church as well as in the United States. Not saying that is disqualifying people who are not in the SDA church or outside of the U.S., but I'm just saying that God is preserving that because he has his people still on that ship. And though it appears to be a failure, it's, he does have a successful group in those ships. Am I saying that?
Yeah,
I don't know if other people are seeing that, but, that's what I'm seeing, because it's kind of like, there's so much light going in my head, and I'm not sure how to put all these pieces together, because then I'm looking at Moses and the Hebrews when they were leaving out of, when they were heading to the land of Canaan, though the first generation, the older generation died off, the younger generation prevailed. So in these two ships, you still see a line of success and a line of failure. And so I don't know how to put all these pieces together, how God is showing me this, but there's a reason why, I don't know, there's just something there about those ships, I should say, because we know that adramitium is showing a part of the condition of the United States and the SDA church, and the condition they're in, but there's still God's people in those institutions, in those structures, so though the leadership is, and those who follow the leadership are remaining in death, there's still God's people on there that he's going to use to do his very work. And that's where you get Alexandria, because it's the protector or defender of the people. So within the structure, he still has the Constitution. He still has his truth there. And though the leaders mishandled it, and are choosing to not use it in the purpose God has blessed them with it, he still has a people in there in those institutions that's going to successfully fulfill what he purposed for them to I don't know. I'm just trying to put these pieces that's going on in my head. Sorry.
What you're saying is true, because Israel, the Jews were the SDA and Israel was the nation. And the thing that I kind of see out of all this is that God was pretty merciful with Israel. He didn't wait for them to make one mistake and then cut them off. They had time after time after time. And it's the same thing with the United States and the same thing with SDA. So we know that if God deals that way with the institutions, he's going to deal that way with us as well. So we fail him time and time and time again, but he has a close of probation for us, and it's down the road. And the closer we get, the hotter it gets, and the greater the warnings get. So he's a fair God. So he's being fair to the USA and the SDA the same way he was with Israel, but eventually that line comes. And like you said, there are people in there that God is waiting for. So I think it was a good point.
If I can just say, because you guys are both right on that, and Sister Tess does actually say that the only reason that this ship is staying together is for our sake and the people of God that are still in the SDA and USA right now that are following him.
Amen. That's what my mind was calculating. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
No, she says that it's for God, it's for the sake of God's people that it's being kept together.
The very elect?
Not the 144,000. It's for us and the Levites because they're still in it also. And
Right.
at the same time that that's happening, you have the plowing former and latter rain of the Nethinims happening also. So they need to have times where it's still relatively calm enough for them to be able to look around, figure out what's happening, and make a decision. So that's what's happening. We're supposed to see the warning signs. It's getting closer and closer. You're supposed to see the warning signs, and you're supposed to think about it and make a choice. And by the time when it falls, then, yeah, I guess the mercy for the USA is up.
Yeah, we had fair warning, though, and no one will be able to say otherwise.
Yeah.
I believe that I'm pretty sure when you get to the Sunday law, if I'm following what you guys are saying, it's the institutions that are done then, but the people
are crumbling. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Going forward, during that time, they're going to hear the loud cry of the third angel, and the events are preparing them for that time, so that they're the external events, because we did not know the message we were supposed to give them, and we would have harmed them. So at that time, that's when they, if they are God's people, they've been plowed, they've had former rain, they've had latter rain, they're getting a loud cry, then they're making their decision to come in, because they're going to hear the choice between one or the other. So it's the institutions, not the people.
Yeah.
Right.
John, real quick, on that Adramitium line up there, why under Panium is there 1989?
That was false prophets. It was mentioned in what Antoinette said, and I forget what it was. There was something about false prophets in 1989. I don't know. I know 1989 is back here. I had the same question when I was typing it in. You might have to go back and watch the video and hear what she said, because I don't know, maybe it didn't come through as clear as it was.
Oh, okay. On this train of thought, I found a quote today that was kind of not what I was used to thinking in my head about when the judgments come on the United States and when close of probation is and how it works. If I could just read that real quick.
Yes.
To make you guys even more confused, if I can.
Okay, well, give us the reference.
Where did I put it? Okay. It is here. The time, this is letter 103, 1903, P.4. Paragraph 4? Okay. The time of God's judgment, a time of opportunity for the unwarned. The time of God's destructive judgments is the time of mercy for those who have no opportunity to learn what is truth. Tenderly will the Lord look upon them. His heart of mercy is touched. His hand is still stretched out to save. While the door is closed to those who would not enter, large numbers will be admitted who in these last days hear the truth of the first time for the first time.
Amen.
That's one of the greatest quotes I think I've ever heard.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. But if you pay attention to what she said, it's during the time of God's judgments that there's mercy for those who haven't heard the message. So judgments are coming down on those who didn't accept it.
Yeah.
And the ones who never heard it, they get to come in. So it has to be before the close of probation, isn't it? But you have judgments coming down. So it has to be between, it starts at Sunday, Lala. Yeah, okay.
So those are like nice people who like really didn't know anything, but they just lived a life of, you know.
Who comes in between Sunday law and close of probation? Who comes in?
Nothing.
Right. So they haven't heard this message yet, but they've been learning according to their line yet, because we don't go to them until then, right?
Right. And they come in all along the way. Once they start, they come all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And judgment could be in the form of this dictatorship, right? When Trump gets full supreme power.
We'll go over that Wednesday night.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that's what it looks like is judgment at Sunday laws is when he has full supreme power and he's gonna they're gonna actually finally get what they were asking for, and it's not gonna be what they thought it was.
They wanted a king, huh?
Yeah, but there's physical judgments, I think, that go hand in hand with that, and we'll see that Wednesday night.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Oh, now we're excited.
All right.
All right. Are we going to stop at 8 or do we go on to this late?
No, you're almost done. I'd say just go through it.
So, where did I start?
King of the South, South Wind, the winds, which he was talking about.
I'll just start where it says Ellen White speaks, I guess. No, I'll go from.
Didn't she have like 3 pages left to go?
I have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3.
Yeah, because I think we should continue that. Well, I'll leave it to everybody else. Continue it on. Let her start Wednesday, and then Adriana pick up when she's done. Or do you guys want to wait and have her finish tonight?
We can have it finished. I think I'm down to stay.
I think if we don't ask any more questions and just let it go through, it's probably
I'll just read through, and then John, you can, if there's any more lines, you can do the size. Okay. We were blessed in our I'm going to start here. We were blessed in our fellowship group in Australia by the presence of a shipbuilder. He built his own boat that, she's talking about her friend, that they sometimes lived on. I think the only boat in Australia made of entire wood. He is very clever with his construction. And so I'm just saying this might sound technical, but I'm relying on him. So she wants to talk about the ship, and so she's going to talk about how he built. When you hit a storm, and like storm, they would have hit, there is a problem that the ship boards underneath the hull by the storm. Doesn't make sense at all. Begin to be pulled apart and water start to leak through the boards of the ship. So if you were to go down to verse 15 and 17, and when the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive and running under a certain island, which is called Claude. We had much work to come by the boat. And when they had taken off, they used his helps, undergirding the ship and fearing lest they should fall into the quicksand, strake sail, and so were driven. So there they're hit by this cyclonic east wind. All those boards of that ship begin to be pried apart and water began to pour in. And the ship begins to sink. It's not sustainable. It's coming in at such a rate that they can't pump it out in time. And it begins to sink. So they did what was common back in the day and even a couple of 100 years ago. My shipbuilder friend filled me in. It was still a common practice. You would go to the front of the ship. If you were looking at the front of it, and you would and you would have 2 teams of men. And what they are going to do is they're going to each take an end of a rope, and they're going to throw the middle part of this very long rope over the front of the ship. They're going to let it come up underneath the ship, and then they're going to like a tug of war, but come together. So the ropes underneath the ship, they both hold holding, and then they start to pull together to wrap the rope around the hull of the boat. And they don't do this once. They do it over and over and over again until all of these ropes are pulled as tightly as they can get them, start to press the boards back together again. So the boat is literally being held together by rope, lines upon line. Ellen White writes us that it's still sinking constantly. They must work at the pump day and night to keep the water out, but now it's sustainable. They can pump it out in time before it sinks. So this is what it means to undergird a boat, rope after rope. It'll tell you in dictionaries, but I didn't just want to trust the dictionary. It was nice to have a piece of history, Tess says. So after 9/11, what begins to hold these institutions together? What purpose do they have? To stop the ship from sinking. What purpose does the ship have? To protect and defend the people. What's the point of having the United States in Adventism? This begins to sound arrogant, but what is the point of Adventism without this movement? Now the audience is talking. 16. Okay. What point is the glorious land without God's people? I'm not talking about Adventism. I'm talking about this movement. Because if this movement doesn't exist, there's no hope for a Levite or a Nephilim. I'm not talking about up like we're something special. I'm talking about the message that's been introduced. That's what's going to save them, the message. What is our message? This is rope after rope that is holding this boat together. And after 9/11, it's line upon line upon line. This is the purpose. This is the only reason we still need the United States in Adventism. Therefore, we have it all up until Sunday law. It's designed to protect this message, because without this message, there is no hope for anyone else. This is the message that's supposed to reach the world. So it's line upon line that holds the boat together for as long as it needs to function. How long does it hold the boat together? All the way up until shipwreck. And then what happens at shipwreck? It breaks apart. And you have Paul, and you have those who he's converted. And you have Paul, and you have those he's converted to do what? They go to the world with the gospel. They go to the island. Paul needs the ship held together until they can get to that island. It's not about us. It's about Malta. Question from the audience. The answer was yes, but it's the centurion that stops them. And move on. So Paul needs this ship, but it's not just about keeping ourselves safe. The reason that the United States, we need these institutions is because we have a destination and a work to do. That destination, that work is reaching the island of Malta. And they are the third group. They are the world. So the reason we need this ship is it's all about the needs to do a scrape through and get us to here and shipwreck your Sunday law. This is when they go to the island. God could not let the United States completely fall apart at 9/11 because we are not ready yet to go to the world. It must scrape through that far. So we've traced 9/11 to Sunday law, and I want to just place a couple waymarks in between. So you can see on this ship, it's about the United States and Adventism. But you can also see it, three groups of people, and we will discuss them. First you have Paul, and then we'll go to verse 27. This is 27:27, a doubling. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down Adria, about midnight, the shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country, and sounded and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again, and found 15 fathoms. So it's the 14th night. Where does that take us to the Millerite history? August? What night in August? What day? What day did Samuel Snow arrive with the midnight cry message? It starts on the 12th. He gets there late. He presents first on the night of the 14th. He arrives on the 14th night, so he gets there on the night of the 14th. He presents the message, but it's shorter. It's really on the 15th that he gives the full scope, which is why we talk about August 15th. The first given at his arrival on the night of the 14th. So our first symbol we have in verse 27 is the 14th night, that is Exeter. As we were driven up and down Adria, Adria, by the way, means darkness. About midnight, our second symbol, this is midnight. The shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country. What makes them leave a safe port that they should not have never left from? And they go on their journey, and Paul warns them, if they do this, Islam is going to strike. If you take advantage of the south wind that's blowing and you go on the course that you want to towards a new world order, who's going to come up against you? Islam. Oh, wait. I'm reading. Am I done?
No.
No? So 16, that's, and then I started 15 again.
Well, it seemed like she.
Here we go, 17, I got it. I got 17. Okay. So if we're going to skip back to a little to verse 20, and we'll find in some gap, and we'll fill in some gaps. And when neither sun nor star in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, and all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. But after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosened from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. So what does Paul give? Paul gives a message. I wanted to mark that he also says he's in the midst of them. Midst is midway. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, and it shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. So, somewhere between Erechthon and the night of the 14th, an angel comes down and gives Paul a message. And what is the message? What does he say to them is going to happen? What's going to happen to the ship? Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. So what message is? He's told them that there is going to be a shipwreck. So 9/11, everything goes wrong. They undergird the ship, line upon line. Then an angel comes down, gives Paul a message that this is going to happen. They've had an increase of knowledge. Paul has had an increase of knowledge. An angel comes down. It's midway. If this is August 14th, what is this? July 21st. The message is already given. They already know they are going to be shipwrecked. What don't they have? They don't have full clarity. It hasn't been formalized. It's the same repeating pattern. Heraclidan, a message is unsealed. 9/11, there is a swelling, an increase of knowledge, and a formalization before a test. Can we see that? This is a repeating pattern. Though we said repeats in every dispensation. So if we were to go to verse 28, we'll do this quickly. I don't want to cut this halfway, but it needs to be finished. And sounded and found it 20 fathoms, and when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. If you ought to convert that into inches, 20 fathoms are how many inches? 1,440. 15 fathoms has as many inches. How many? I'm sorry, 1,080. What have they done? Literally, what have they done is they've dropped a line down the side of the boat, and they have calculated the distance between the ship and the seafloor. And they've given a certain calculation amount of time, and they've repeated it. So they can see there is a difference of 5 fathoms in that set period. What are they calculating in the distance? They want to calculate the distance between here and here. If we want to combine these numbers, it's the 2520. You can get that from the number itself, that this formalization comes with the characteristic of time. And didn't we say that? It's a characteristic of the formalization of a message. But what we also can see is that what they're doing literally in that history is calculating how long they had the ship was going to be destroyed, and then they dropped the anchor. So, question, what waymarks are these? If Sunday law is a shut door for the ship, what is for the ship? Close of probation. And between 9/11 and Sunday law, this becomes Concord and Exeter. But everything about this waymark is the midnight cry. That's what gives us this. Oh, that's what gives us this waymark. So what waymark is this? Raphia. No, there's a question mark. Raphia, it's Panium. What waymark is this? Audience says Raphia. Test continues. Can you see what you just done? We've made Panium midnight.
Midnight or midnight cry?
Midnight cry.
She said midnight. Midnight cry. I apologize. Midnight cry.
It's all good. That's it?
That's the end of my presentation.
That's the way it ended, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And pretty cool, eh? I thought that line was pretty neat.
Yeah.
It made it make a lot more sense, the fifth line.
Yeah, it always makes more sense when you do it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
But just, the repeating pattern, the fact that they were doing depth, doing the depth, it was for time. They were counting time until shipwreck, and that's what the 2520 tells you. It tells us basically is how much time there is for shipwreck.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, you can't make this stuff up.
Nope.
Wow. Praise God, Sister Tony. Good job. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we all still learned a lot. See, and so did you. So
Yeah.
this was really good.
I have a question. Can I ask? So, at Sunday Law, who is not benefiting? Who is only going to be benefiting the Nethinims, the message that we have?
Yeah, by then the Levites would have been in. So the last Levite has to go in, and it's Sunday Law, and we go to the.
So it's like what you were saying, Victoria, about the ship. Is that the reason why God gave us this ship is to carry, is so that God's people, the priests and the Levites, will have a place, a safe place. It's the protector and defender of the people, until the
Right.
until shipwreck, because at that point that message has to go onto the island, Malta Island.
Right.
Like what you were saying.
So
Yeah.
Sister Tony,
Yes.
share with us your experience in the presenting part.
You mean just now? What I just did just now?
Or the whole thing, the whole process, I guess. Share your experience of how has it helped you? You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. So like I said, it was a bit. It took me weeks. It literally took me weeks because of how that. Well, we were blessed to know that we finally got the closed caption, and then we also got some other stuff, and that helped tremendously because I couldn't figure out the spelling. So that was kind of hard. We did get blessed a lot. I must say that for me, for not knowing so much, and the reason why it did take me longer is because I don't know how to work a computer. So, and I know there's other people out there who don't really know how to work a computer very well either. But
You know what I used to do before I got wise? Like months ago, I wasn't actually that great at typing. I would literally pause a video, write it down manually, play, and then pause it and then write it down manually on a piece of paper with pen and then play. I would just like take detailed notes that way. You get hand cramps, but you can take breaks.
I type
but you learn a lot.
one sometimes because I'm holding the paper. So yeah, I think my experience, my overall experience was I really had and this is just the honest truth. I'm just being honest. I had to do more trusting in the Lord and the words that He's given us. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to get it done. I just know that I needed to continue in doing it. And I know that He didn't like me really staying up late or, like that, doing things like that. But He was gracious. I mean, I was relieved. There were days where I was just really happy and really into it and just, just going about my business, not even worrying about things. And I think the miracle of it all was the last days because I persisted. And John was absolutely God sent. I mean, God pressed upon his heart because I'm usually with these meetings with we're all together, right? We're usually all together, and something must have pressed upon him, and he just checked in to see if I was okay, and then realized that I had the presentation. And Elaine that was talking to us before and telling us that we need to ask people for help. We're in this together. We're one body. We're one people. And each of us, we just ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And I asked for help. And I think John kind of chuckled a few times because I still did not, he would show me how to get around certain things to PDF or things like that, whatever it was, but I still wasn't getting it. But I got some of it because Elaine did receive the PDFs.
Now,
it was a good experience for me because it was a learning lesson. I didn't quiver or anything up here. I just let the Lord let me read, and I didn't, I may have jumped in a couple times and said what I wrote at the end, but I thought that was good just to add a little bit of stuff instead of just.
What has it helped you with the understanding actually of the present?
Well, I understand a lot. I understand that the two ships, its purpose, our purpose. It's all about saving where the priest and then you have the Levites come in, but all of that on that ship our only purpose from there on is going to the world and bringing those Nethinims in, and then all the stuff about conspiracy and what the government is doing and how it lines up to what we knew about other things, which lines up to, I can't really explain it to you, but what we've learned in the past is lining up with these lines. And it's just given us me more awareness of where I stand in the information. I lack a lot. I don't retain a lot, but there are times where I do retain, and I did retain.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
There's. I know Susan's missing, but we'll be talking about this more as we go forward. But what Tyler talked about on Sabbath or on Friday with the Portola group, and then me and Lisa as well, that he wants us to start holding meetings once a month. And we talked to him about, because he wanted us to do it in the physical locations between Rescue, Portola, and Cottonwood, which really makes it hard. Not that everybody can go every time, but it really makes it hard to do that 4 times a year for us and then try to get to the other places every single month. Expense-wise for people, logistically, it was too hard. So once a month, and the groups, the Portola group, Lisa and I are going to figure out the all the fine details of it, but we're shooting for towards the end of the month. Everybody knows that for the ones that I'll do, I know will be for the end of the month, and I'm pretty sure Lisa, things work out for the end of the month better for her too. So what's going to happen is that from the California group, this particular thing will not involve the outside groups, just the California group is what he wanted it to set us up to be kind of a training for teachers, so that the meetings once a month will be made up of a Friday and then Sabbath, 1 presentation Friday night, 5 on Sabbath, and then a Q&A. And so it will make up of 3 different people among us. And I sent the list off to, well, I'll finish that part in a minute. So 3 different people doing 2 presentations. And Sister Adriana worked up a schedule for me, and she's going to take care of that once we all get the okay back from Portola that they're okay with everything. I sent them the names of all the people that are available here in California. I did talk to Laura Pence. She will most likely participate, and she's going to let me know about her husband. Victor will participate. And when I say California, I'm talking about Rescue, Portola, and Cottonwood. So
that's what I was just going to ask. So we're all going to become one body.
Yeah, so granted that there's 2 of you guys in Arizona that are part of these 2 ministries, so yes, it's going to include you guys.
Of course.
So that once a month there will be a rotation, and with the schedule, the template for the schedule that Sister Adriana worked out, once we get, like I said, because I sent everything off to Portola to look at, and if they want to change anything. But then once we get the okay on that, then we'll start slipping in names for speakers, and everybody will know well in advance, and they'll have 2 presentations to prepare for and present. And since you'll know, well in advance, 6 of those presentations, 6 months, most likely it'll be every other month, will be done via online. So then the others will be in the physical location. That will stay the same. We'll have 2 Portola, 2 Cottonwood, 2 Rescue. And then, but when that only comes to the teaching, but everybody can join and participate in watching. If I didn't say that, I want to
streamline.
Yeah, so we'll be live streaming, but and I think Sister Adriana said she was going to try to look into
portable internet, which, thank you for reminding me, I totally forgot, but I will try to do that.
Because Rescue does not have internet there, and so we're hoping. And then
Lisa's doesn't have good. Yeah,
Lisa has a problem too. So so we're going to look into that to see if we can't, so that we don't wind up not being able to stream it through Zoom. So anyways, that's in the works going forward. But our normal Sabbath and Monday, Wednesday, Friday will be everybody. So, because my first concern was, well, what about all these everybody else that's always involved with us? And he wanted it specifically just because he's put over the United States, and I know up in Canada you've got TAVO over that, so they're going to be working on whatever they're going to be working on. And so he wants to specifically focus on training here for the United States in this group. So we'll still continue doing this the way we're doing it with everybody, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then what we're doing on the Sabbath normally. It'll just be once a month, but it'll just be 3 California teachers. And it'll be, like I said, it won't be like we do at Fellowship. It will be a Friday night, which we already do a Friday night anyways, and then 5 presentations and then a Q&A.
And this is all for us to become teachers.
Yep, all to prepare us to be teachers, to get experience to better understand the method. What?
Sorry, Huawei, isn't that the Chinese spies, those
Yeah.
kind of phone devices? But I'll look into their portable internet anyways. It's not like they don't need to hear this message too. It's fine.
I had another point that I was just going to make, and I got to remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me, but it was one other thing I know I needed to say about all this. Anyways, maybe
I was just going to say that I just wanted to say that we're never going to have an easier audience, and this message is going to have to go forward. So these are opportunities that, you know, for anyone who hasn't and is considering it, you're never going to find an easier audience.
Yep.
Yeah, that gave me hope, John. Thank you.
But it is to train us. It is to prepare us. It is to bring us together closer as one. That's why I was like, I really wanted all the Canada group that's always with us and the various people, because Sister Lana, she's back east, and I know Elizabeth, I think she's back east. I'm not sure who else. And so, but anyway, so the Sabbath, that one Sabbath will just be the California group teaching. And it'll be really, I'm really excited about it. I can see it really working out pretty well, putting it together, because everybody's going to have plenty of time to put together their study. And again, working together where those that have skills help those that don't have skills and such. And John, I just want to thank you for everything you did for Sister Tony as well.
Yes.
She would have done the same.
I'm going to learn.
Yeah, I don't know, like I can't do a tutorial. Adriana has some posted up, but even Elaine, like if there's an opportunity outside of the study time, if you know, like if Tony or Jeff, I don't know if he's even here.
He
was like, if he's having issues, just it'd be easier to be one-on-one, and I can do a share screen, and if they have questions to ask how to do something, I can just do it on the screen, and that way I'm covering what they need to know rather than trying to cover something they may not use.
Right. Do you have the ability to record it when you do it so that we can get them posted?
Yeah. Yeah, I can still screen record it and post it. That's no problem.
And do you have, because do you have a YouTube channel?
No. Well, I've got my own, I have a channel, but I mean, I guess because I have an email. A Gmail.
Yeah, because what I'm saying is we'd like to post them. If you do them, we'd like to also post them here, but you can't just give us the file. You know what I mean? So if once you upload it, then we can download it and upload it.
Oh, is that how that works? I have to right off the screen grab. It has to go right onto YouTube. Is that what you were saying, Adriana, before?
No, because I can export to an MP4. Can't you like share MP4s somehow on the internet?
I just downloaded the program, so if it saves as an MP4, I can just send you guys the file, and you guys can post it on YouTube on your channel.
Yeah, you can export it.
Yeah.
Aren't those files pretty big?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. It depends on
Google Drive, maybe depending on how, if you have Google Drive, you can post them there and then send the link, and then we can get it.
Why can't we just do the Zoom that we have? You know, you just put. Does it interfere with your work if it's on your name?
No, well, what we're talking about is recording them so that they can be posted to YouTube. So everybody.
Oh, well, what if
you
guys can give me the information to post on whatever, I don't know, maybe that's personal information that you don't want to get out, but I could post it right onto your channel.
Right.
I could give you the SAC fellowship one. It's like not personal or anything.
Okay. Well, we'll do that when we do the video, and then I'll just get that information.
Okay.
Because I would like to learn how to do the drawings. And John, I'm going to check out with the Best Buy, because I can put 5 people on my publisher, and I only have 2. So I want to go check that out and see how that works if you want publisher. I already paid for it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well,
you have a map.
When we do, if we do like an online Zoom kind of thing, we probably won't get into all the drawing of all this stuff. We'll probably do something maybe simple. But then even just like, because I know Jeff, I think he was saying he had trouble with copy pasting, and he just, the very basic stuff. Okay. So if both of you guys are kind of on and any kind of questions, and I can show you little things that I know save a lot of time.
Okay.
And like it's just because this is the program that I'm using, and you guys won't be able to probably You get it on your computer. So.
Because you're a Mac.
Because it's a Mac, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But and PowerPoint I can't use because I don't have an Office subscription, and I'm not going to buy one. So.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I may have it in the number to use for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
John, can you convert them to PDFs? Did I miss that already?
Convert which to PDF?
Your presentation to a
These
PDF.
slides, yeah, I'm going to send them through to Elaine. PDF is probably the best way. I'll just send them all through, and then they can be tied in with Tony's notes.
Ken, I hate to be the person to do this, but the African folks, they do like the word document. Do you
Okay,
have
I can do both. I can do both. That's no problem. It just takes 1 second. So, all right.
Because I think they like to go in there and edit. I'm not sure what I don't know, but that's what they told me. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no problem.
That's why I usually send both whenever I do.
Both, yeah.
Don't with the Publisher stuff because I do my stuff in Publisher. I might try to switch some of them over, but it'll take time to do that because I want to put them into a slideshow too, the previous ones. So anyways, does anybody have anything else? If not, then somebody want to close in prayer?
I can pray.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for the amazing work that you did through our sister Tony this evening and helping her to present this topic. And we thank you for our brother John helping her to get through this also. Lord, we thank you for putting it in our hearts to come together and help each other and lift each other up to be able to teach these things so that we can do a more effective work when the time comes. We ask that you continue to be with us in all of our endeavors. We're trying to get things organized in the future to teach people more effectively so that they can teach more effectively. Lord, please bless us in our efforts to come together once a month. Bless us in our efforts to study these things out so we can teach it to others and continue to guide us in our walk with you all along the way. Help these lines and the things that we're studying to have their effect on our lives and on our character, and be with each and every one of us who are struggling and trying to find ways of how to present these topics. Lord, we thank you for all the ways that you did make open for us to be able to do this and for always being with us. We pray this in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.